evening. My name is John Sessler. I'm in the Arts and Education program. You're going to get very sick of hearing the word story tonight. So I've always had an obsession with stories. And my interaction with stories started at a very young age. I remember anxiously awaiting the arrival of Granny Rutabaga to my first grade classroom. She was full of fantastic stories. And she happened to be probably the only storyteller in my small town of Muscatine, Iowa, albeit the best storyteller. But my interaction with stories hasn't been just as a consumer of them, but as a storyteller. And my pathway into story was through theater. Being on the stage allowed me to tell stories of individuals that I would never become, people I would never meet. And at the age of 16, I was provided with the clarity on how storytelling can provide me agency. It was a character that I had never played before, a character that provided me a way to tell a bit about myself that I had never had agency to tell before, to provide people with information that I wasn't comfortable revealing myself. And at that moment, I realized that I couldn't just hide behind a playwright's words. The true power laid in my own story, sharing my own voice. And this is the power of storytelling. It allows us to have the agency and the connectedness to others and a way to truly question the world that we live in. We hear the word storytelling thrown around a lot these days, from new digital applications that allow us to share our voice to even companies that have at the heart of their mission storytelling. CEO of Starbucks, Howard Schultz, says, "We have to bring together a product to life through the romance and the language of the story. And the story has to be authentic." But in this world where we can reappropriate stories so easily and stories can be commodified, we have to look for the truly authentic narratives. And we have to respect those narratives. Before coming to HGSE, I was a teaching artist with a number of different programs, storytelling and theater programs, that help students find their voices. And as one of their assignments, I would have the students go home and collect stories from their families. And then they'd come back and we'd sit together in a stories circle and share these stories. And I was always struck by the empathy and compassion that was truly visible amongst my students, and the connectedness amongst them. But we wouldn't just share personal stories. We would also share the stories that have been so classic in our society and have become memes to us. Because I think stories are just like any other great work of art. They beg us to question them, to critically analyze them. And a professor of mine once said that stories help us become hopeful skeptics. As the tragic events of last week unfolded, I remember staring at my computer and being inundated with a huge amount of Twitter feeds and news updates. I finally had to step aside and start questioning what was truly real and what was the real narrative that I wanted to listen to. And this is what being in the arts and having a background in theater has really done for me. I have been able to critically analyze the world that I inhabit. And in this world that is increasingly concerned with the quantifiable and the tangible, we must make space for the authentic stories. Whether they be spoken, painted, danced, or drawn, we have to allow these stories to have space to breathe in our schools and our communities, because they can enact change more meteoric than any data point. And in the words of Ben Okri, poet and novelist, stories are the reservoir of values. Change the stories individuals and nations live by and tell themselves, and you change the individuals and nations. 9 months ago, we all came to HGSE campus with our own stories to tell. And we will embark on journeys with new stories. But I challenge all of us to encourage our students, their parents, our communities to be authentic storytellers. And as they listen to storytellers, or stories themselves, have an ounce of hopeful skepticism. Because imagine the day when every individual can have the agency to tell their story and know that it can enact change. Thank you, HGSE, and thank you, my AIE cohort, for the inspiration and insight.